Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Semi-Pro Talks by Semi-Professional Magazine. I'm James Hamilton, to my left as usual Zach Wright,
Hello.
across from him on the DJ decks, Dan the man Platts.
Hello.
Opposite him, now, I'll be honest, this man over here has been getting under my quilt, he's been nibbling a little bit of me recently, the man Josh Brewer. We'll see how we get on.
How are we all doing today on this fine day?
My well-being's never been better.
Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday.
Not Wellbeing Wednesday, because I walked down the stairs today after being half asleep and it's absolutely lashing it down here in Sheffield.
Oh.
So I've got a message, first message of the day. Rishi Sunak turned the weather machine to sun. Outrageous, no wonder you're not getting voted back in.
Anyway, boys, let's get straight into this episode. Zach, you've got that out of the hat section for us.
And it's, should FFP be a thing in the non-league game?
What it is there's no financial fair play in non-league, but like when you go to like EFL League 2 and 1, you're only allowed to spend a certain percentage of your turnover on player wages, and then in like the Premier League and Championship, you're only allowed to make like a certain amount of loss over like a 3-year period. Certain clubs find a way of getting around it or get points deductions. It's meant to stop people spending out with their means. And make them more sustainable, stopping clubs from getting into financial troubles, which works incredibly well, as we've seen with many clubs that have definitely not gone out of business.
So in answer to the question then, do we think that the financial fair play rule should be linked to the non-league game? What do we think?
It's a sticky one because, I mean, in the end of the day, if you are going to bring implications in, then it stops teams in the conference, like Premier, especially getting to like the League 2 status or getting into the EFL anyway. It kind of like holds them back from that next level. But then without FFP at all, we have seen teams like Wrexham and Notts County and like Stockport, the big teams. And I mean, you look at, I think Paul Mullen's actually a really good example because he was already League 2 top goal scorer this season before. He just got promoted to League 1 and then drops down to the conference.
Yeah.
Drops out of the league. So, I mean, that's like just one case in like a...
Are we saying that that's good then, or are we saying it's bad?
No, it's bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's definitely bad. It's definitely bad.
But also, if you bring it in for everyone in the non-league as well, for semi-professional football, then surely you're creating more of a boundary of them getting into League 2 and League 1.
I think there's a balance, isn't it?
Here's what I would say on that point, because I agree with you that it is bad. But what you could say is that it could be good because we want really high-quality players to be playing in non-league, don't we? So it is good in that fact. And I guess, like, if you've got the money, why can't you spend it? Now, obviously, because there's no rules in non-league, you have clubs that don't have the money, then going to try and spend money that they don't have. But what I would say is, if they have money and it's like any sort of free market economy, why would you not then be allowed to go and spend that money? That's what I would say to that.
Well, I guess having it involved, obviously, like we said, kind of brings a bit element of safeguarding, stopping clubs, like you say, trying to realise that dream and then going too far. But an interesting point with Wrexham, though, had a little tip off before the pod that they're actually one of the better teams for FFP due to their Disney documentary.
I just want to give you a question. Do you think that if, say, a non-league club has a lot of money going into it from the top owner, it takes it away from that community feel that we look for? In my opinion, I think it does. I think it does take it away from it.
Go on.
I would be inclined to agree. But also, you see with, like, Salford did it a few years ago, didn't they? But I think because their owners, even though they all are rich, they have kept that community going because it's more of a home for them. I suppose they're all from Manchester anyway in terms of the owners.
I guess it depends on the owner, doesn't it? It depends on the owner.
So they've brought money in. They got Salford from, I can't remember what step they started off in, all the way up to League 2, and they're pretty much a stable League 2 team now. And I think they've taken a new direction on it, but like it started off the same way. But that community actually, I think, grew stronger, to be honest, with Salford fans.
It's a good point, actually. It can develop and grow more under the strength of the money that comes in.
In general, I think I do agree with you more.
I think that we talked about it a little bit in episode 4. It really does, and like you said, it does depend actually on the owner. It really is a case by case basis because, you know, me and Zach always have a bit of banter about the Wrexham thing, but hand on heart, I can say that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, that they've done an incredible job, and it's difficult because, especially with the Disney documentary, it's difficult to maintain that local feel because you've got people from, especially the United States, and they actually feel like they have done it well. I've seen a graphic yesterday of them. I think their season ticket price is around $3.25, which is very competitive for a League One club now.
Team. They look at Braintree's.
And then you look at Braintree's. Yeah.
Braintree, we're having words with you.
You just watch your step, Braintree chairman. I'm coming for you. You best hide. Yeah, so it really is a case by case basis. But we also touched on it on the last pod. It's like some owners who, mainly when it's one person, they've got loads of money and they want to make sure the world knows they have loads of money. They've got a huge ego, and then, like we said, how it ends up going wrong, and then they push that debt onto the football club. Yeah. In terms of like going back to the actual question, I think that I would like to see a bit of safeguarding in place, because whilst I agree with the fact that if you have lots of money, I don't like saying you can't spend it, but just because of the dangers when people think they have lots of money when they don't actually have lots of money, that's when I would start being like, we need a bit of safeguarding in place. Yeah. But it is a difficult one because, like I said, there's a lot of great owners out there who have lots of money, but then there's idiots. So
again, I think it goes back to the point that we made. It's a balance, isn't it? There has to be an established balance between safeguarding and people with money. But
just 2 years ago, if you asked Brewer the same question when Notts were in the conference, right? I bet his answer was completely different. That's all I'm saying.
Moving on.
We'll move on to the Tom Williams interview now. Brewer,
great guy. Tom Williams. Speaking to him, obviously know him for quite a long time, and he really has risen on social media, especially incredible. He managed to pass 20,000 followers last week, and covers lower leagues, mainly non-league, which obviously is perfect for us. Does so much good work in terms of promoting that. So I had a great chat with him. Sort of known him for a couple of years. He's started off doing, when Notts were in the National League, doing a lot of like Notts-based stuff, and then obviously he got a love. Obviously talking to him, he got a love for non-league, and then started, as he was sort of getting a bit more popular, then started branching out. And now, if you go on his Twitter, he's simply does tens of stuff every day on all sorts of non-league, also a bit of lower league stuff, sort of like lots of threads and stuff like that. So it was great to have a conversation with him. And then so should we play the first clip? How did you sort of like get into doing what you do? Because now, like saying you're on 20k followers is wild, mate.
Crazy to me, the number. It's weird to think because like this time last year, I think I had like 2k. So, but how did I get into it? I just basically, after my first year of exams at uni, I was watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy with my girlfriend, and I was like, we must have been done 3 seasons or something. And I was like, mate, this is just like, don't get on, it was all right, but I was like, I need to do something. So while we were watching it, Toby Adebayo just signed for Notts. So I was like, I don't know much about him, to be fair. That was before I was like really watching a lot of National League South and stuff. So I was like, you know what, let me just watch like his clip. I just watched like every game he's played. I watched the highlights from every single game he's played last season because he hadn't played that many. I think he played like 20, 30, like between like 27, something like that. So I just watched all his highlights, clipped them up, put them in a thread. Yeah, just from there, like people were like, this is really interesting. And then Langstaff signed. That one did well because obviously it's a striker who scored 30-odd goals already. So it was like those clips were easy to do. And then it just started going from there. And then I kind of quickly realised early on that like I'm interested in like all teams. And with Notts, there's only a certain like I think there's probably a cap. I was like, I'll start posting about a few other teams. And then from there it just went on and on and on. So it was so just kind of started by accident. A lot of people asking like, you got any advice how to get into it? And I haven't really got like a fixed starting point of like how would you start, because I didn't really have like I've got a plan to start. It kind of like happened if you like.
How busy are you with it? Because it's like
all the time you're on it. Like anything happens in like the lower leagues, non-league, anything, you're on it. So the fact, how much time does that must take?
It is pretty much 24/7. Obviously, barring sleep, like it's pretty much like I struggle to do a lot of stuff because I'm like wanting to check if anything's happened or if if any news is broken, or like if it's not in news, I'm thinking like in terms of like content, I've got to do a post, or like I'll be, if I have a bit of downtime, I'm like, right, I've got to get a post prepared for tomorrow. And one thing that I do, which I don't think people like, I've never said really before, but like, if it gets a certain time of night, I'll be like, right, I can't post now because this post will be wasted. So say it gets to like 8:30. If it's approaching 9 o'clock, I'm like, I'm not going to post because it's a waste. So then I'll use that time to post, like to get the post ready for the next day. Sometimes I have a structured content plan. So when I was during work, I would have like a structured content plan, because I would be like, I was on placement for 3 months, so then I would I'm working from 9 to 5:30 minimum. So, but at the minute it's a little bit unstructured. I like to have like an idea of what I'm going to post throughout the day, but sometimes it can be like mad. Like something might happen, like a signing might drop, and then that will just change all of my ideas. So you have to be quite flexible, because like football, it's stuff that's happening all the time.
Yeah, so just talking to him about how he really started this, and he just started it from the ground up. One sort of light bulb moment, and it's sort of grown from there. What I want to talk about is, obviously he's managed to build up such a big following, and like a main reason why we're doing this is that there's not a lot of mainstream media coverage of non-league. Obviously, I wanted to put it to the fore. How important is it to have people like that to try and push the non-league narrative? Because like we say, there's so little mainstream media coverage of it.
If I can start, when we've done interviews in the past with people at, the Corinthian Casuals, Enfield Town, whoever it is, from my personal experience, every single person you talk to, they are so willing to want to speak to you, whether that's physios, kitmen, managing directors, chairman of the club. And I think that gives us a good indication that actually people at the club want to see more written, more spoken on it about it anyway. The need for content creators on the non-league pyramid is vital for people to know and understand what is actually going on, because it is still the case, and I push this every single time, it's still the case that people in this country don't know about the football that's not being played outside of the Premier League. That's my take on it, but I think more should be said on that.
He's on a roll today.
Yeah, he is. Look at him.
He's been practicing.
He's doing that.
He's been media trained.
The redemption arc is crazy.
Redemption arc.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything that's said there. Plus, obviously, I mean, it's just great, more so for clubs as well. I mean, more eyes we can get on, players, clubs. I know, obviously, with Tom's stuff, quite like statistical based as well. He does a lot of analysis in those parts. So, if you get more kind of stats and, just informing the average reader, more people know about non-league and a couple of, like say, the star players, star clubs, people what are making decisions for this reason, and we're all going to get a bit of a better understanding.
Genuinely, I can say hand on heart, because there's literally little to no media coverage. Without these people like Tom, they wouldn't know. And how are we meant to get eyes on that when they don't know? Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, all that you kind of see, anyway, other than like media, other than these content creators, is the media teams from the actual clubs. And a lot of that is voluntary work anyway. They don't get paid for it or anything like that. And what they produce, and some of them have gone massive. I mean, obviously, I spoke to Leamington's Max Passing Team. They've got over 80,000 followers on TikTok. Like, that is huge. It's such a good thing. It's such a good feeling to know that there are people out there, content creators like Tom, and what we're trying to do as well as a brand. This is what we want to do as a brand. We want to get that content out there from non-league. To all you listeners, we want to get it on our social media. So once again, I'm going to plug them. Our social media, Semi-Pro Official, like that's on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We are on Facebook as well. We've got like our link trees. We've got the website. It's up and running. Yeah. It's going brilliant.
Just go check it out.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on how you think clubs should use stats in terms of like individual everything, and how important do you think stats are for football in general?
Yeah, I used to. I think my content's kind of like come a little bit away from stats. I still obviously do have heavy stat input, but like when I first started, it was very heavily stats based. Now it's like I've moved a little bit away from it. just because I think we've seen it with Notts, not to bring it always talk about Notts, but stats I think are brilliant for attacking players. And I know it's a bit, as Notts have shown, finding stats on defensive players is a bit more difficult, hence why we've not hit as many as, as for attacking. So for example, for an attacking player, you could look at XG, and I do really like XG. And you can determine, Danilo Orsi, who signed for Crawley, they signed him because he had a really high XG but wasn't scoring many. And then this season he's had the same XG and he scored loads. So you can have a bit more predictive. For defenders, it's a little bit more difficult. I think teams should use stats. I think you should use every tool available to you, because I think if you're not using every tool, then you're missing a trick. You should try and use every single advantage possible. But I think you have to be careful not to rely on data, because there are players who, I know there's players in the National League who, there was one player last season, I won't name a name, but there was a lot of quite a lot of interest in him, and even groups I'm in were posting this midfielder, has anyone seen him? His stats are amazing. And I know from his manager was we've got a lot of interest in him, but we don't really know why. We know he ranks really highly on stats, but he's okay, but for some of his stats he was top 2 or 3 in the National League for loads of things.
Really?
Yeah, so it was one of them where teams were interested in him, and I don't think he ever got his move in the end. It was one of them where a lot of teams were looking at him because his stats was really good, and I think you've got to use it in combination with the eye test. And I think stats can be as well a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? A lot of things like XG. I know XG, people love to hate XG. I think it can be used incorrectly, and I think it's important that you use them in the proper way.
Yeah, so that was really insightful, and obviously Tom does so much work on, like you heard there, on stats. So I just want to put a question, because I know a lot of people might have different opinions on this one. How important do we think stats are in football in terms of analysing games, how games turn out, maybe even signing players as well? The floor is all yours, guys.
I knew this was going to come.
I'm sitting back.
It's to an extent, is it? Your XGs and that, they do mean something. I know it is new talk. People get scared of it, the DARs get scared of it and that. But those, if it's consistent and it's across a season, and some stats are showing up, it's not going to be surprised when the team who's creating the most XG is probably going to be up there for the goals scored, unless they've got
Darwin Núñez up front.
Yeah, cheers for that, mate.
But then you do get some stats that are just forced, they're not really telling me much. I can remember when we had one, it was some player with Forest hadn't lost when he was playing for the last 12 games he played, and 8 of them were at home against the bottom 6 sides in the league or something. It's okay, yeah, you're right, but is that telling me much? Not really.
On the other hand to that, Zach, I would argue that sometimes statistics are vital for understanding progression, how a club can develop things like players when they're looking back at how they performed in a game, individual games, and they're looking at stats. Absolutely right. Some of the stats you get are absolutely washed. You're not even going to pay attention to them.
Tom, I love you, mate. But I do love you, and I love your content.
No.
But I do not. Right. Do you want to know what I like? Winning. And do you want to know what I don't like? Yeah. Losing games but having 70% possession and more XG. I do not care. It really winds me up when people, especially maybe managers, saying, "Oh yeah, well, if you look at the stats, then we played better." Yeah, but you didn't win. I like winning games. I'm sure we all like winning games of football, right? The only stat I care about is goals scored versus the goals against.
I can't believe this from you, Rat, because Football Radar, mate. Ever since they've come in, that's some of the best years of your bloody life.
Right, first of all, we finished 14th this season, and second of all, they put out. This is basically where, and a better context. This is where my hatred of stats really came from. It happened about a couple of months ago. Not so run the worst run I've ever seen in my life. I'm leaving games are half time every week, and they put out a statement saying, if you look at the stats, our league position, we have merited a much higher league position. What on earth are you talking about? The only stat I care about is goals scored versus goals against. Mr. Potts.
See, that's just completely just wrong, innit? I want to take Southampton because I feel like when you was talking about losing a game but having 70% possession, that's the team that came into my head with Russell Martin's like way of playing football and stuff, right? Southampton win a game 1-0, right? They've won a game. That's all you care about. They've won a game. But it's 1-0. If they win 1-0 against Huddersfield or Rotherham, bottom of the league at home or something, you're gonna think that's a crap result, really, when you just look at it on paper, right? And then you look at the stats and you actually realise Southampton have had 70% possession. Rotherham haven't had a shot on target or whatever, right? All of a sudden, that game goes from like scrappy 1-0 win to they've absolutely battered them. Just stopped like trying to go forward because they knew they didn't have to. Never in danger of conceding. So your logic's just gone out the window. And when you can have a run of games where you're losing, right? But if you're getting the more corners, more free kicks, more passing together, more chances created and stuff.
You're just trying to wind me up.
The goals are going to come. All right. The goals are going to come. Strikers.
So we're on a 5-game losing streak. But you know, if you look at the amount of corners we got, then we should have won all the games.
All right,
what a load of nonsense.
Look at Danny Rowe. We didn't. First 4 games that he were in, we lost all 4 in a row, right? Yeah. We were dead and buried before he got in. And then he comes in, we lose 4 in a row. All fans are looking at it. We're getting better. We're playing better. We've got more possession. We're actually having shots and that. And we didn't get relegated, did we? We literally made the great escape. 5-game losing streak. We lost his first 4 games and we stayed up because we knew we were playing better.
Who were you playing in those 4 games, though?
I don't really remember that.
Can I be devil's advocate? Do you think it's in the non-league? Do you think that statistics are as important as, say, further up the football?
I think they could be even more so.
More so, yeah.
To maximise what a club's got, the budget, if they get a proper analyst.
This is a good point.
I'm sure Tom Williams is.
Here's what I will say. I'll tell you where stats are important in non-league. It's signing players. I think that's really because obviously you don't have the scout. You don't really have a huge scouting network.
The network's not.
Stats when signing players. Going to give a little shout out to my dad's prodigal son, Ruben Rodriguez.
Exactly.
Signed from based off stats.
Exactly.
Absolutely ran the show at Wembley. In terms of like match stuff, I want to win games. I don't care about possession or corners or whatever he was going on about before.
At the start of last season, nonsense, and we won't get into like the individual bit about it, but though that happened with Rawlinson and that. And we were talking about, like, obviously, as you get such a bigger account, your reach gets higher and the amount of potential idiots that can comment on your posts and stuff like that. Maybe at that time or at other points, how have you sort of dealt with that to think, like, you know what, I'm doing a good thing here. I know I'm doing well. Don't let these people get to you.
That one was kind of mad because that was the first, like, someone from A, for the team I support, and B, like, someone in the game. Like, I've never really had any other footballers comment. I might have had like a couple, but I can't remember them. Like, I never had a footballer like retweet or anything or like comment. So that was kind of crazy. And what was weird about it was like I hadn't seen the message, but people were messaging me about it. Like, oh my! Like, and I was like, "What are you on about? Like, what do you mean?" And then I went on and saw it. I was like, "Oh, okay." And obviously, I was extremely disappointed at the time. But like, I think what was lucky was that I've obviously got a bigger following now, but I had like a lot of people like like yourself, like a lot of good people who kind of backed me up, if you like. And I think that if I hadn't, I could have easily gone under and like just decided to quit it all. Like, and I think that's an unfortunate thing is why I will never sort of retweet something negative, or like if I see someone's post and I see it and I think I don't really agree with that opinion or whatever, I'm never going to quote tweet it and go, this person's work isn't great, because then I know that because I've got a following, people might jump on that and think it's negative. So just like he has a following, he has 10,000 fans who go and watch him every week. He's was at the time a really well liked player. I'm not saying he's not well liked now, but he doesn't play as much. So, but at the time, he was like he'd just been part of the promotion winning side, and he obviously has a lot of people following him. But that in particular incident, I had a lot of people support me, and it was actually ended up being a positive thing, because I didn't realise how many people did support me in that type of situation. And since then, I've had people, and to be fair, it's only probably the last couple of months where I've really just not let it get to me. Like, again, this don't sound big-headed, but I get a lot of notifications now, so I miss a lot of the comments that are negative. A lot of the time I see the comments because I've gone on the comments of my post I've like, I remember seeing that comment, I'll go and reply to it, and then I'll see the negative one. I don't always get them in my notifications now. And I would say even like 2 or 3 months ago, it would really get to me. Whereas now, like if I see them, I just have to shrug it off and just be like you say, like I'm doing a good thing. The one thing I've learned as well is that with the way that Twitter works, is if I reply to a negative comment, people will see the negative comment.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
reply to it, no one's going to see it. So I'm just like, you know what, forget it.
Social media now, everyone has an opinion. We've all got an opinion, obviously, but social media, everyone has an opinion. And I just want to sort of put this to the fore, and we'll talk about it because it's quite serious, really. In today's modern world where it's really easy to just go online and slate somebody, how important is it for people, especially like people like Tom, to sort of try and block it out and keep on going, because it can be really hard and can be difficult. So it's all, how important is that just try and find ways to keep on going?
I think it's just one of them, and like you're never gonna please everyone. There's got something to moan about, complain about. I think the proof's in the pudding. Like he's a master big brand now at this, obviously doing this non-league. He's very good at it. He's got the followers are there, so a bit different when an actual football player.
It's got to hurt coming from
because
your
I think
team as
especially like my issue with that was, and it made me quite angry at the time, Tom is doing this because he's just trying to promote the clubs and he's trying to draw more interest into it. So when players obviously come on that, and they've got a big following, the players as well, and also like we all know, like with football, because it's so emotional, certain parts of a fan base will always side with the players, even though it's quite clearly that they're wrong. And then that feeds into people just being really quite harmful to people like Tom and other content creators. Do we think that it should just be like generic stuff, or do we think that it needs to be more opinionated? Because it is a fine line, and I don't know what to think on it.
It strikes a balance between them promoting and influencing, obviously, their larger audience. If you're a footballer, you're more likely to have a larger audience. But I feel like at the same time there's a balance between them. You can't limit their freedoms of their social expressions when they're putting stuff on their social media. So there has to be a balance. Maybe it comes from the club. Maybe the club says, look, we don't want to see being harmful to other online users, which obviously is the case, and you'd hope that would be the case for everybody. But adding to your point, Tom Williams is, obviously very successful in what he's been doing. I think it's a lot of it just comes from jealousy from other online media users. They're seeing the followers, they're seeing the content that he's making, and think, "Wow, I'm not doing that." It's just going to get on at him in the comment section or whatever. But I just don't like seeing it, to be honest. It's quite harmful. Like being on the other end of that. Like, come on.
Yeah, and you have to remember, this was maybe this was like don't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there was clearly alcohol involved in this on this tweet, because it was like I was asleep. It was like midnight on a Saturday night. I just feel like it's so irresponsible, and then it's people. My people in like football fans, they seem to not be able to think for themselves. So like, there'll be people like whatever the club does or anyone associated with the club does, they'll just blindly support it, and they can't think for themselves and realise that, there is always a right and wrong no matter who it is. And I think that's why that's what people need to take into consideration, especially with football. I get it, it's very emotional. Some opinions can get people quite annoyed, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, it's an opinion. Just because someone has a different opinion to you, you don't have to. Like we just did there. Me and Dan clearly had a very different opinion. But after this podcast, we're still only mates. Like we're not gonna be like, what are you doing? Stuff like that. Big message to Tom. What a guy, and thanks for those clips.
Shout out to Tom. Thank you so much.
What a guy. Thank you. And keep on doing what you're doing.
Don't listen to everybody that's
Keep on doing what you're doing, because your content is incredible. Tom H. Williams 23 does so much good work for non-league. If you're interested in non-league, lower league, statistical stuff, and really is a
massive shout out to Tom. Thanks
good
so
friend
much.
of mine,
Thanks so
and
much.
thanks for him to doing that.
We've had, obviously, you listeners comment every single week on each of our podcast episodes. And one of the questions from one of the listeners was, do you have any match day routines or superstitions? Now, before the podcast episode started, we went through this, and our producer Charlie Howe mentioned that he wears the same scarf for his extra games. Did he say through summertime as well?
Yep.
I can't
Even
believe
in the summer.
that. No. Well, he's obviously got a lucky charm. I don't have any superstitions. Maybe I'll get a pint in before the game if it's non-league. But any superstitions?
Kind of common one is obviously, I like an acca.
Yes.
But
Never bet on your own team.
yeah, you really can't, especially with...
Especially if you support Forest and everybody wins.
Exactly.
I do, actually. No.
Exactly that.
I agreed with that.
Never bet on your own team.
Until Wednesday we're 4-0 down against Peterborough because the bet was just too true. It's too good to happen.
Did you have a bet on that?
Yeah.
Oh, mate,
I just put Wednesday to get through and then
How much for that?
on like 70 quid from a fiver or something. So thought it was going to be more really.
Yeah,
So we're 4-0 down.
Bookies are
but-
bandits, aren't they? It's
Yeah.
rubbish odds.
Doesn't really matter anyway because Forest normally lose them. So
Brewer, any Notts County rituals that you
Yeah,
do before the game?
when your football club isn't playing that great, the actual pre-match stuff is better than the actual football itself.
Sometimes, yeah.
So sometimes you probably get out of mine at like 10 or something like that. Head down to Nottingham because obviously I don't live there. Sort of get into the pub about 12 and love meeting all the people that we meet because it's obviously the only time that we really see them. But sort of so I absolutely love that. I almost love that better than the football. And I'm actually with Charlie. So I've had the same knot scarf. I'm 22 now. I've had it since I was 5. It's still with me. Somehow not lost it. And I'm with Charlie. I wear it to every single Notts game. And you know what's quite.
Bet that stinks.
You know what's quite interesting about that is like, obviously we've seen on our socials my memorable moments, and you can see the scarf that I'm wearing. That is the same scarf.
It's a really good photo.
Yeah,
of your dad.
But actually, when I look at photos from when I'm at Notts games, we're talking like 16, 17 years ago. That same scarf's there, which actually is quite. It's quite.
Class.
And do you want to know where I got the idea from? My dad's the same. He's had his scarf for like 50 years, and so it is a bit of a family tradition, really. And if I ever lost that scarf, that would be like, honestly, it would be one of the worst things that ever happened. And I know it sounds stupid, but like it's so important. And like when you can look back at old photos from when I'm like 5 years old, and now we're taking it to Wembley and got photos, and it's there. It is quite incredible. And I know it probably to people that don't really like football or whatever, they'll think he was this clown, but. It is quite
sentimental.
Yeah, it is quite
nice,
really sentimental, actually.
Platsy, food of the game, more pints. What's it go?
The superstition that we had, so it was me, my brothers, and my dad, and they still live by this. I actually don't live by this anymore because I kind of. It's one of those like all bad luck ones. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's walking under signs. So there's wherever we
on
park,
the way to the game.
Yeah. So wherever we park at Hillsborough before the Wednesday match, there's always a certain amount of signs that we walk past and stuff, and it was always. You got to walk around it. You can't walk under it. And even the people that
do that anyway. Not even if I'm going to the game.
I know. I just stopped anyway. We got relegated. Thought, well, hang on a minute. If Wednesday lose, it's not my fault for walking under a bloody sign. It's because players are crap.
Well said. I feel very strongly about this, and it's the same for walking. I got told apparently you're not allowed to walk over like
3 grates.
You have to say toast.
Right. None of it matters.
I say toast. Free drains is toast.
Yeah, free drains. None of it matters. Please go on.
Right, but
It does matter.
so that was it. So I've stopped, but my brother and my dad, they still do it and like stuff like that. And this is a superstition that I was going to say that I don't necessarily have because away games I don't really wear a Wednesday kit, which obviously fans can. I absolutely respect it. But do you know when you see on Twitter as well and stuff like that, when people take mick out of fans wearing their own team's kit, like at match days, like because they're not wearing CP or Stone
This
Island
is
or something.
another.
Because and what got to me were you go abroad. So I went to like a Real Madrid match and a Sporting Lisbon match last year and stuff like that, and the amount like everyone there is wearing their team's kit. They're wearing their team's jersey. Well. It's brilliant. I get why people won't do it. And don't do it, especially if it's like a massive game. Do you know, if we're playing like someone who's going to sell out at Hillsborough and then be out in Sheffield afterwards, so like Leeds fans, then I won't wear one. I won't wear
mine. You want to go out.
Yeah, I want to go out afterwards and stuff like that, and I don't really want to draw that much attention to myself if I am.
Out.
If I find myself lucky enough to be around all them Leeds fans.
But that's more of like a practical thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas like But this is almost going back to when we was talking about social media with Tom. It's another example of just people trying to be cool, right? Wear what you want. Right, first of all, no one cares about your Stone Island stuff. You know, you can pose for photos, look at me. No one cares. If you want to wear it, wear it. If you want to wear a scarf all year, wear a scarf all year. If you don't want to wear club colours, don't wear club colours. If you want to wear club colours, wear club colours. But no one cares.
Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Get our social, Semi-Pro Official, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We are live on all of those. Comment. We want to know what you guys think throughout the next podcast episode. Any more for anybody else?
Nah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Over and out from Semi-Pro.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.